The Sweet Sound of Success show is brought to you by the Mentor Studio. The Mentor Studio is an exclusive mentoring and training program for social influencers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and startups, bringing personal development to the underserved around the world. And brought to you by Success Strategists. Simple strategies that work to develop your business with flow and ease using proven strategies and the right tactics. This is the Sweet Sound of Success with Sue Wilhite, Success Attraction Expert. Stacy is a self-proclaimed geek girl who just happens to have also done 25 plus years of therapy and teaching. She combines these magic tricks into her Find Your Formula coaching programs to co-create formulas that get things done, balances, and sustains your wellness while you live out your life's passions. Welcome, Stacy. Woo!
Thank you for having me, Sue. I've been waiting for this all day.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this. We had such a great conversation when we initially met that we had so many things in common. We were both techies. We both went into therapeutic avenues. We keep those things together. We had life experiences. It's so much fun to find people. This has been the great thing about COVID, as far as I'm concerned.
Right?
I would never have met you if it hadn't been for COVID.
Yeah,
Right?
it's meeting people who, some things you have that are common and other things that you don't, but are like, oh my God, that's really cool. I want to hear more about how you do that.
Right. And speaking of how do we do that, this podcast, this show is subtitled The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur's Soul. And as such, we are using Joseph Campbell's cycle of the hero's journey. Now, for those of you who know are going, oh my God, there's 16 points to that cycle. We're not doing all 16 points. We're only doing 5 of those. And those are the ones that I find really relevant to the entrepreneurial experience. And those 5 are, this always cracks me up, the ordinary beginning. Yes, like any entrepreneur is ordinary in the first place, has an ordinary beginning. The call to action, which is how do you become an entrepreneur? The big hairy monsters, which Stacy is uniquely qualified to talk about.
Had a few also.
Yeah, right. And sometimes the call to action and the big hairy monsters show up sort of simultaneously. But we'll see how that happens. And then the 2 things that I love the most about this show are talking about allies, mentors, coaches, guides, wind beneath the wings, best buddies who are cheerleaders, because entrepreneurs don't do it alone. By definition, we just don't. Forget this myth, right? It is not.
Entrepreneur does not mean self.
No. Entrepreneur means between, entree, between. And then finally, the journey home, because we do have allies, friends, guides, coaches, all that sort of thing. And then there are the folks who are going, what do you do again? And why are you doing this? Why are you giving up a paycheck? Why are you not having a paycheck? Why are you not having the security of a paycheck? What's wrong with you? Because they haven't experienced the joy of being an entrepreneur and don't know what that's all about. So we will have Stacy's view on all of that. And so, Stacy, what was your ordinary beginning?
It wasn't. How did you guess? It was not ordinary.
Intuitive flash.
I know, right? So and some people may or may not know this about me. Sometimes I talk about it a little, but I showed up 3 months early.
Like
I wanted out of there early. Yeah.
Wow.
I was 2 pounds when I was born.
Wow.
It doesn't look like it now, but they said eat, they forgot to say stop. Long story. But 2 pounds and spent the first 2 months of my life in an incubator. So nothing about that is still to this day, people who are born that tiny, the chances of them being here healthy, however many years, in my case, 50 on years later, they said I wasn't supposed to live 24 hours. Yeah. And they didn't know how stubborn I was.
Yeah.
So that was the first of my, what I call my tenacious moments in life that I have had. That was the first one. So it definitely wasn't ordinary. It might have been, it happens to people for sure, but it was not ordinary by any means.
Right. So what brought you to the entrepreneur's journey? What was the call to action? What happened that got you?
Toxicity in a stable workplace.
Yes.
Let's keep going to work 9 to 5 in a corporate university hospital-based environment. There are 3 layers of toxicity there before you even walk in the door.
Right.
And I don't begrudge or regret being in that environment, doing those things. I was in those places for a reason, but it was time to not be in those places so that I could sustain my health and wellness over a longer term.
Right.
Because where I was going, it was not going to be pretty if I didn't do something. And I knew that 10 years ago.
Isn't it sad that we equate corporate workplace with varying levels of toxicity?
And it doesn't have to be that way.
It's mythic. I mean, it's true. You so rarely hear about workplaces that are beneficial, that are healing, that are supportive. I mean, they pop out, but they're like, wow, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I have a theory about what we've just lived through, Sue.
Yeah.
I think that one of the gifts that COVID is going to have given us is a change in that toxicity of the workplace.
Right.
I have seen it in people I know who are still in a corporate day job atmosphere where their bosses are actually way ahead of the game in making sure that their people are happy, checking on them about things.
Right.
Hey, are you in a rough spot? I'll give you a $500 loan and then you pay me back. What bosses do that, right?
Right.
Or on a Friday afternoon, everybody go home. You've worked your butt off all week. And I know of a person whose boss has done those 2 very things in the last month or 2 and does it routinely. Right. And I actually had the opportunity to speak with the gentleman and I said, look, you are ahead of the game. I am an entrepreneur because the toxicity I was in. If you were my boss, I might not have had to make that switch.
Right. Right.
So I really do think that there's the possibility of healing the toxicity. If we listen to the lessons that COVID has brought us.
Yes.
As a society.
Yes. And the options that people suddenly have.
I knew 20 years ago we had this option to do this visually. The only thing you and I can't do right now is hug each other.
Right.
Or physically touch each other. We obviously know we can, yes, but we obviously know we can build a relationship on a video.
Yes.
And that video that meeting just to have meetings is not productive. And we've learned other ways of working. People have learned that, oh my gosh, that 2-hour commute I had each day was killing me.
Yes.
And if my boss lets me work, if I can do the same thing from home, why not? And then the boss doesn't have overhead or various things. There's lots to be gained on both sides.
And your magic word, productivity,
And actually, I think it gets better.
It gets
Frankly,
better.
I do more now in a day. Oh my God, do I do more now in a day than I ever did in the 8 years at my last job.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
And I was there for 8 hours a day, but I was not being productive because I wasn't in an atmosphere that allowed it.
Yes, exactly. And so that's some of the big hairy monsters right there.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think it was the lack of being able to be productive, which also ties to our self-worth and our ability to like feel good about what we're doing, and because then you also have all the, you may have other people saying, well, you're not being productive. And, then you have this shame and blame and all sorts of things. And
yeah,
it's a recipe for health issues.
Yes. Yeah.
Or in my opinion, the four things underneath all of our health problems today that were also under them before COVID.
Yeah. And they are, it's become incredibly visible that our mental health affects our physical health.
Yeah.
And
those of us in the field have known that for eons.
We've known that for decades.
Right. But people who do medicine other than Western medicine. I think Western medicine is finally catching up with other forms of spirituality and medicine.
Right.
And we're finally catching up with realizing that it is one connected energy being.
It's a system.
Yeah.
It's all very well to specialize in kidneys. Kidneys are cool. Kidneys are really awesome little beasts. They're little bundles.
They do cool stuff.
Specializing in kidneys or specializing in brains.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing stuff. And you can't be isolating kidneys. Kidneys do not live in isolation. They live in a system.
Yeah.
Parts.
Yeah, you can't just take them out and let them live on their own.
Yeah, they don't.
They won't. It's not going to happen.
So yeah, it's a systematic thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the biggest things that Western medicine has gotten to learn all over again.
Yeah, I really think, like I said, I think there's a decent growing list of the things COVID has taught us. Yes. It's given us perspective on our relationships.
Yes.
It's given us resilience and tenacity, even if we didn't have it before we found it.
Yes.
It's given us perspective on our workplaces and how we can redo those things. It's given us perspective on mental health, and that, oh my gosh, it's okay to talk about. It's all right to talk about it. It really is.
Yes.
In fact, if we talk about it, maybe
it gets better.
Normalize it. It's just like, oh, you went to the doctor you went to the ER because you had a heart attack. Ooh, I'm sorry. You doing okay? Oh, you went to the ER because you were having a panic attack. Oh my gosh, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Stacy, let's talk about some of the support systems that you had, because we could talk about productivity and we could talk about big hairy monsters all day.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to combat the big hairy monsters is to have allies, to have guides, to have coaches, right?
I'll tell you, I will probably have to say that first and foremost, my biggest coach, mentor, inspiration in my life, it's got to be my mom. I got to put her there, closely followed behind by all of my grandparents. Also, not to say not adding my dad in there, he's in there too, but so family. But my mom, watching my mom live through going back to school and going back to work in the 70s as a kid growing up in the 70s was incredibly powerful. That led me to, hey, I can do this. I can go get a master's degree. And then I can go get a second master's degree. And well, that part was the fact that I lost my mind. But anyway, she's one, my grandma's, both of them in different ways. One was a nurse, one was a stay-at-home mom. They both had amazing gifts they gave me. In the academic world, I have a mentor who has just like been by me ever since I got into the academic world, and she's still it's interesting, we mentor each other. She has taught me about curriculum development and just various things and teaching. And then in return, she was terrified of cell phones and of technology.
Oh.
You cannot rip that Android phone out of her hand now. If you try to take that phone out of her hand, she might bite you.
Ooh. Ooh.
So, I was able to gift her back something that I had, and it's a really cool symbiotic relationship. I'm going to say outside of, and then another one, probably my mother-in-law. She's been I realized not long ago, she was actually my first business coach, but I didn't know it.
Oh.
Because she was a Mary Kay director, and I was, I tried my hand in that kind of entrepreneurship before, and direct sales is not my jam, not really. But the things she tried to teach me then now are like resonant in my head of identifying your ideal client and talking about, all the different things I've learned in the last several years as an entrepreneur. And the blessing there is she's around, and so now she's like my unofficial business coach. Then on the outside of my household side, outside of family side, oh my gosh, there's probably too many people to mention in general, but I'll say my two social work shero crushes. One, they both happen to be social workers. But also authors and just brilliant women.
Uh-huh.
One is Brene Brown.
Of course. I was going to say, Brene Brown.
And if Brene ever if I could ever get 15 minutes with Brene, I would be all kinds of excited. Her work on shame and vulnerability, and her deep dive, and her working in qualitative research, which is like just, had they taught me about qualitative research when I first got out of school, there's a chance I would have ended up with a PhD in doing qualitative then. But I didn't, and so like watching her work is just amazing. Plus I love her presence, if you will.
Yes.
Her ability to tell it like it is.
I could go all fangirl here.
Yeah, I recently found another fangirl one who also, I happened to find out she's a social worker. I'm listening to an audiobook by a lady named Judy Robinette. And it's How to Be a Power Connector.
Right.
Come to find out, she was a social worker before she went into investing and such. And I'm like, okay, she just moved up on my list right under Brene. So in the spirit of looking at power connectors, I'm like, and if you don't know what her book is a version of describing the kind of the idea of 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing that we all say, we're all so many degrees apart from each other. I'm like, I'm just curious. I'm going to go look up on LinkedIn and find out how many degrees away am I from Brene and from Judy. And guess how many degrees I was away from Judy?
3?
2. I just have one person between me and her.
Oh my goodness.
So I reached out to a couple of people, and then if they don't answer, I'm going to reach out again. And if they don't answer, then I'm going to just go ahead and see if I can send her a friend request, because I'm just tired of not being bold like that in my life. Thank you, Jeanette Anderson, for teaching me some more boldness. But and the same with Brene. I'm only one away from her too.
Nice.
And I had no idea till I looked at that. So it really goes to show you, whether it is, and I don't think it's COVID, but I think we really are closer to being connected to each other as human beings than we even realize, and I don't want to say take advantage of, because it's not really taking advantage of, but that we have the courage to speak out and reach out about.
Right, exactly. And we can go into all quantum physics and entanglement. And
oh yeah.
I'll go there if you want, but not on this podcast.
Right. There's.
I can do a deep dive in that one.
Uh-huh. So my and then ones that are passed on, probably people like Eleanor Roosevelt,
right,
Jane Addams, Susan B. Anthony, the suffragettes. I have a habit of calling them the grandmothers.
Yeah.
Because to me, they're the ones who fought for a lot of things that we as women, our rights. And then of course, the more recently deceased RBG.
Yes.
She's also she's way up on that list too, brilliant women who advocate for other women. That's probably who my inspirations all are. Not to say anything about the guys. It's not that. It's my inspiration. I get filled up from that inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. How awesome.
Yeah. And maybe there's a part of me that wants 50 plus years from now, somebody to say, I had a mentor. Her name was Stacy, and I have a bunch of social work babies out there and public health babies that I have taught grad school to that I know talk about me like that in different ways. And that fills me up too. But right. To me, it's actually fulfilling something so here's one of the men in the picture. My great grandpa had a saying. He immigrated here from Scotland in 1924. He helped fight he and his brother, he went back to work in the mines in Scotland. When his brothers were all on strike. He went back to work as scab labor, but he did it, number one, so that somebody had money to take care of the family. But number two, he actually was bringing information out to the brothers. But he was kind of encouraged to leave town when it was all over with. So he came here. One of the things and he died when I was 5. I do remember him. I was apparently the apple of his eye. I don't know what he would have thought of me as a teenager, but we won't go there.
He left before he could find that out.
Yeah, he left before. Yeah, and I'm sure anyway, but his saying was pass it on. Doesn't necessarily mean to the same person who you got it from.
Right.
But for the longest time, ever since I learned that was a value of his, I latched onto it, and that has become an important value to me, of passing it on to someone else. And, I may or may not ever hear. Sometimes I do get to hear about it. It's hard in the helping professions. You don't always hear about the things you do
right
that impact people. Like if you're a doctor and you save somebody's life, you can tell that you saved their life.
Right.
If you're a therapist and you save somebody's life from something you said that clicks 10 years later, that saves their life 10 years later, you might not know.
Right.
And you've got to be okay with that. And I am, I'm
You
not in it you're definitely not in that, or entrepreneurship for that matter, for the glory.
Right. But to make a difference so that other people can make a difference, so that other people can make a difference, so you can just keep passing
ripples,
it on.
Baby. It's ripples.
It makes it huge. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we're back to the energy field again.
Yes.
How do we get back to quantum again? Here we go. Huh. we need to both do that at the same time.
So now that we've got all the warm fuzzies going, what Joseph Campbell calls the journey home. And to be really clear about that, he's talking about when the hero has done, he's danced with the big hairy monsters, and he's, done his call to action, and she's been on the journey, and she comes back home, and she's changed by all of these experiences. And the people at home haven't been on the journey, don't know what the heck that is, and expect you to be able to just sort of pick up where you left off, or not acknowledge that you've changed in any way.
Exactly. That is so huge, especially for entrepreneurs. Unless you are blessed enough to be speaking to another entrepreneur who gets it, you can't. And I wouldn't expect them to get it. I mean, I wouldn't have understood what it felt like 10 years ago. I knew I wanted out of the toxicity, but I didn't understand everything this was going, even though actually 20 years ago, I had my own business, but it wasn't near the journey I've had the last 10 years.
Yes.
And I would not have, if I were to give that, well, it'd be what, a 30 something, give her advice, it would be go ahead and jump in now and persevere, because I would have been 20 years ahead of where I'm at now.
Yes.
But is that where I'm supposed to be? Probably not.
Yeah,
I can't dwell there either.
Right.
Because that doesn't give me any forward motion. Right. But you're right. The people around you don't always understand. I am lucky that I have an incredibly supportive family. My mom has 2 children who are self-employed, fully self-employed.
Nice.
She doesn't get it. She gets it with my brother because he's a musician. He always has been one. And that's all he ever, not that he ever couldn't have been something else, but he's extremely talented as a musician. And that was what the universe wanted him to be, straight up. I mean, he started pre-birth. He was definitely in utero. He was a musician. Most people don't realize how incredibly hard fully self-employed musicians work. They think they're lazy.
No.
And this man is the farthest thing from lazy you could ever be. And so I am lucky enough that I have him, that we are able to share now the journey. I also have my best friend has her own business. It's a retail business, but we're able to share our journeys with each other and support each other. So even though, but even, that said, the members of my family who aren't in business for themselves I'm lucky that they hold me up the best they can.
Right.
They hold me up. They show up when I invited a bunch of my family to a summit that I was on a couple weeks ago. I didn't think about the fact that they would show up to the session. They did. My cousins from Scotland and my mom all watched me present my formula in a summit a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
And so that's the kind, if that explains, that's the kind of, they didn't understand, why would you do a summit? What is it? What's, what are you doing what do you mean recording a podcast? That doesn't make you any money, right? And they don't understand the pieces and parts and how things work.
Right.
But they hold me up that way. I wouldn't be able to sit here and I wouldn't be able to sustain myself doing it if it weren't for that.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, not to mention all of my entrepreneurial family that we get, luckily get to hang out together different times of the week and, see each other running down Zoom halls. Hey, I just saw you. Oh, I didn't know you were going to be here. It reminds me of high school.
Yes.
Running up and down Zoom halls. You're like, oh, I'm late to class. Oh my gosh, Sue's in this class.
I didn't know that.
Wait a minute, how did you know about it? To me, those are the fun things that we're doing now.
Exactly.
Hanging out and being able to share with each other. Oh, did you know about this thing?
Right.
Those are the kinds of things I love doing. Hearing what one person's doing and then connecting them with somebody else in my network who either needs them or could work together with them or whatever. I was born a connector, obviously. That's what I did as a social worker.
Right.
It's certainly what I connect people with resources and other people and help them connect their brains with their future stuff and whatever,
Yes.
That's, I didn't know until but you talk about the journey. I really didn't grasp the totality of that until probably I was grasping it right before I went on the journey to fully be self-employed. 10 years ago, I was grasping it. I knew that was a piece of it, but I didn't know how intense it was.
Right.
And I hadn't embraced. There was a time I was angry that I was part of one world. I was only kind of part of one world and kind of part of another.
Yeah.
So I'm American Indian. I was raised in the white suburbs of Kansas City and didn't know about my background until I was older. Not that by any fault of anybody's or anything. And so when that happened and I went on a journey to change my spiritual worldview, I would never fit in that quote unquote white suburban world again, ever. Right. And I never will fit in someone's world that grew up with their native point of view. So I'm sitting here by myself in between these two worlds. And oh my God, I used to get angry about it. Here I am it's not, and it'd frustrate me and I'd get angry. And then once I embraced it and realized that the gift I was given to be the translator between the two worlds was like, oh, okay. And then boom, it all fell in place. The same way that I realized I'm the technology therapist. I mean, have you ever met another technology therapist?
I know.
And that's what I told someone just the other day. They said, well, what is a technology therapist? I said, well, I think I'm the only one I know. And it's that I translate between those two worlds.
Right. And speaking of translation, you have not just a gift for connecting, but you have a gift for people to connect with.
Yes. I have an actual gift you can get in your email box.
Yes.
The gift is a productivity planner, and it is a fully hyperlinked PDF that you can use. If you have an iPad, you can use it on website or on apps like GoodNotes, Zoom Notes, Zodo. If you have an Android, I think there's a couple of the programs that do and what I mean by hyperlinked is when you touch on the tab that says January, it goes to January's tab, kind of like our old school Franklin day planners when you flip open where it actually will do that. And so it's a fully hyperlinked calendar. It's not a full year calendar, but it is a productivity planner where there are links inside there and tips and tricks on just little things you can do to be more productive.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Link here. Find the link there. The link will also be in the end card at the end of the show and also in the show notes. So you can find it all kinds of places. That's so cool. Productivity planner. I love it. People don't realize how much time they waste, and they don't realize what tools are available to them to make their lives better and less spinning wheels.
Yeah, and the other, one of the things about that is sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to spend the time setting that up.
Right.
So if you take 2 hours to set something up that's going to save you 500 hours later, do the math.
Right. It's so much better.
And so there are things that you can set up, and not just technology automation, but automation here.
Yes.
The 21 days it takes to build a habit of, I am going to look at my email once a day only. I'm going to do the touch it once philosophy, and I'm going to, and then magically months later, that's what, if you kept your habit up, you built it with the mindset, you're more productive overall.
Right.
Because you're working synergistically with the technology.
Yes.
Partly.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And what's that thing over your shoulder?
Which one? I've got one on every shoulder.
It seems to me that there's an app for that.
There is an app for that. There's an app for if you want anything about the technology therapist, and actually pieces of the formula. There's actually little tidbits of little goodies all through the app about the formula. And so it's Technology Therapist on the App Store or in the Google Play Store, either one. Just look up Technology Therapist. You can go to stacybraiuca.com/app, but Technology Therapist is easier to spell than Braiuca. What can I say?
Yeah. There you go.
So you can connect with me through there. You can find out more about the formula, more about, my podcast is ultimately going to live there. The podcast is also called Technology Therapist. There are a couple little bitty episodes there right now, but
teasers.
Yeah, they're teasers. They're pod bites, BYTES.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. This has been a delightful conversation. I love the technology therapist. I just can't tell you how much I love that. It's so cool. It's one of those, I wish I had thought of that.
It took me a while to embrace it, but once I embraced it, it's not been bad. I like being it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
thank you. And thank you to the listeners and viewers of The Sweet Sound of Success.
What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.